Hi, this is Joe again with another review. I want to say in this video, I'm going to be discussing a show that I kind of referenced to in one of my more recent videos. I recently discussed the 400th episode of Law and Order Special Victims Unit, and I made references to the original show. And I figured it wouldn't be fair to discuss Law and Order SVU without discussing the original series, and that's what I'm going to do for you now. I know it's going to be hard to do a review of a show that lasted 20 years, but I'm going to do the best I can. Well, the original Law and Order television show originally broadcast on NBC, and it lasted from 1990 to 2010, so it lasted 20 years. Time the record for Gunsmoke as the longest running drama in television history. And like I referenced in my 400th SVU video, I wish they extended it for one more year just so they could say the show broke that Gunsmoke's record. But Law and Order Special Victims, I'm talking about SVU here, but it's the original Law and Order show I'm discussing this video. It's one of the more unique television shows in TV history, because it's a cop show and a law show or prosecution show, and that's something was really done even back in 1990, because it's a show. It is a cop show. It's also a law show, because the first half of the show you have a crime has been committed. It's usually a murder. 9 times out of 10 on the show was a murder. And for the first half of the show, you have the investigation. You have two detectives, along with their commanding officer, who, in the original first couple of seasons, was played by Dan Florek, who played Captain Cragen, and his character was transferred to the SVU show when that show started. And you had Chris North, who of course most famously played Mr. Big in Sex and the City, and George DeZanza. Was the two original detectives going out and investigate the murder that's been committed. And then for the second half of the show, you had Michael Moriarty, Richard Brooks, and Stephen Hill, who recently passed away. Stephen Hill did, and they prosecuted the case. And in fact, Stephen Hill's character was based on the original. Was originally based on the Manhattan DA, Robert Morgenthau at the time. And this crusty old DA. Of course, like I said, for the second half of the show, you had the prosecution of the person who was arrested for the murder. And that's how the show usually went. Well, after about 3 years, Richard Brooks was the first. Not really. Richard George DeZanza was actually the first actor to leave the show. And of course, over the course of the 20-year show, became a running joke of who's the next one going. And actually had bets in Las Vegas who was going to be the next one to leave Law and Order. And eventually, I'm not going to get into every single case of who left. But I'm only going to discuss quite a few of them. Richard Brooks was the first one to leave. I don't know why he left, but he decided to leave. And of course, the most famous, George DeZanza was really George DeZanza's character was the first one to leave because he couldn't work with Chris North's character. Because Chris North was being a pain in the ass, and he had a tough time working with him. So he left. And then you had Paul Sorvino, who couldn't work with Chris North either, so he left about a year and a half. And they brought in Jerry Orbach, from Dirty Dancing, to work with Chris North. And he was the only one who really could control Chris North and actually worked well with him. Until Chris North left, I think after 5 years, 6 years, he left. But the first major, other than Chris North, in the early years of the show, left was Michael Moriarty. He left after 5 years of the show, and the reason why he left was because Janet Reno, who was then the Attorney General of the United States, was pushing through Congress to have TV ratings like you do in the movies. When you have like PG or NC-17, movie ratings for movies like PG, PG-13, or for television shows. And she specifically pointed out Law and Order, because every episode starts with a murder, and then you have the rest of the show focusing on the investigation and prosecution of said murder. But the problem with that argument is that you never actually see the murder. You do see the dead body, either in the trash or in a park or like a Central Park, because the film is based in New York City. Either in a Central Park, or Riverside Park, or was fished out of the Hudson River, let's say. But you don't actually see the actual murder itself being committed. You just see the dead body, and then the cops or the detectives investigate the murder case. You don't actually see the actual physical act. You may hear, let's say, gunshots off in the background, people running around the corner, and they see a dead body. When they see the murder victim. You never see the actual case. And Michael Mulroney got so pissed off that they're going to put TV ratings on television shows that he left. That was an excuse that he used. Or the George Costanza character, which I previously mentioned, he was the first Law and Order character to be killed off. And there was about maybe two others on the original Law and Order show who were killed off, and I'm eventually going to get to it. The one who, of course, replaced Richard Brooks as the DA was the smoking hot Jill Hennessy, who was later on played Quincy Jones. She was really like the first real woman to be on the show. And then you had S. Murkison, who played Lieutenant Van Buren on the show, and she was one of the longest actors on the show, along with Jerry Orbach and of course Sam Waterston as Jack McCoy. Sam Waterston replaced Michael Mulroney, and he was on the show for the rest of for the next 15 years. He was on the show throughout the rest to the end of the series, and so forth, as well as Murkison, when she took over for the Dan Flora character. She also stayed. There were only two ones that stayed on there from the time they came on the show to all the way to the end. Everyone else left at one time or another. Then the Jill Hennessy character was killed off in a drunk driving accident in the end of, I think, season 6. She was killed off, and she was replaced by Carrie Lowell, who was a former Bond girl, and she stayed there for a while. And then she left, and she was replaced by drop-dead gorgeous Angie Harmon, and who stayed there for a couple of years. And then she was replaced by Elizabeth Rom, who was pretty much fired from Law and Order because nobody liked her, so she was fired, and she was replaced by Anne Frazee, Anne Parisi. Her character was killed off in a storyline on the show. So those really were the only two actors on the. Or three, including George Costanza character, were killed off on the series by an actual crime. Now, of course, the most famous one that left, other than the ones I already mentioned, was Jerry Orbach. He left to do a new spin-off series. I think it was called Law and Order Trial by Jury. But unfortunately, he was diagnosed with cancer and he was dying. And he, of course, after about like 3 or 4 episodes of that other show, starring Bibi Newirth and Amy Coulson, he unfortunately passed away. I gotta love Jerry Orbach. I mean, we really lost a real talent. Of course, like I said, the series ended after 20 years, and you also had the cops also left as well. Not only Jerry Orbach left, but also you had when Chris North left, you had the first really black actor to be on the show, and that was first you had Benjamin Brown on the show, and he left to do movies, and you had Jesse L. Moore came on, and he was there for a long time, for like 7 or 8 years, something like that, and then he left. Then you had I forgot the guy who's on one of the shows now, I think Blackish. I think Anderson, I think is his last name. Sorry, I don't remember his first name, but he came on, and so was another actor who came on to play the two detectives, and played Lupo Bernard. Those are the two really last two detectives to stay on the show for like the last 2 years. But then the series was really going downhill, ratings wise, and that's why the show and also production continued to rise, and the ratings started to fall off. And the reason why the show started to run off is because I also one of the running gags with Law and Order, other than the cast members leaving. I also forgot to mention that Stephen Hill, like I said earlier, recently died, but he was replaced by Diane Reist, originally to take up his spot as the Manhattan DA. She was replaced by Fred Donald Thompson, who stayed there the longest after Stephen Hill left, and then he left, and Sam Wollaston took over as the Manhattan DA for the last I think really for the last 3 years of the series. And now, after the cast changes, one of the other biggest jokes that I had from Law and Order was that how it took storylines, real life stories, and put like when they call it like a Law and Order twist to it. But basically the basic story was there, and one of the first real life stories they did was they took the Joe Steinberg case in the very first season, and didn't realize it until I recently saw in the reruns, and they did a Joe Steinberg ripoff. That was in the first year, which was a New York story. And another story they took right from the stories from New York City was the Wild Man of 79th Street, I think it was this black homeless guy who was terrorizing people in a particular section of Manhattan. Unfortunately, and that guy kept going to jail. I think he died in real life, but the real guy, the guy on the show, was killed by the neighborhood, and the guy who killed him was known as a hero, and of course eventually was convicted of it. So that was one of the other stories. They also did like not only on the original Law and Order show, but also Special Victims Unit. They did a Michael Jackson ripoff, with him molesting kids, especially when Michael Jackson actually did get arrested in 2003 for molesting kids. They did that story. They did a story about an ambassador who was accused of raping a maid, and he got off on it because he had diplomatic immunity. You had several other cases. Like so many. You're the cow. I know I'm forgetting, and I know I'm blanking out. I'm sorry that I'm blanking out, but I mean, it got to be like a running gag. So, here's another ripped from the headlines. And they actually when they used to promote the show, they actually used that tagline, ripped from the headlines. They also recently, or at least a Special Victims Unit is guilty of this as well, when they took cases from real life stories, and like the Penn State incident, because naturally, of course, the original Law and Order show didn't cover it because it was off the air already. By the time you had the Penn State case, it was the Penn State incident. They also had stuff like kind of like with like a Rush Limbaugh type character to have rallies and to have fight the fight the country and all that stuff, and fight and all that, signing riots and stuff like that. Those type of stories. There's also I forgot one other part of story, New York story that was covered on Law and Order. I think during the first or second year, a Bernie Getz story. Now, of course, those of you who don't know who Bernie Getz was, back in I think it was like 83 or 84. Bernie Getz was riding the subway and he got mugged by about 4 black teenagers, and he had a gun, carried an illegal handgun on him. It was illegal because it wasn't registered. The gun that Bernie Getz was carrying was not registered. So he shot all 4 of them, and one of them was paralyzed for the rest of his life. And so he went so Bernie Getz went to trial for it, and he got off for the shooting, but not for the gun. He went to jail for the gun charge, because, like I said, it was an illegal gun he was carrying. So they did a case on that, on Law and Order. I think they also did one on the Howard Beach incident as well. Where it was like, I think it was like 3 black guys. I don't remember if it was 3 or 4. Went to a Howard Beach section in Queens, which was like a mostly white Italian area in Queens. And there's 4 guys who was like riding along and having them passing through this neighborhood. And the car breaks down, and they go to a pizza joint, and they got hassled by a couple of white mob, and they got chased. And the Grand Central Parkway was not that far away, and one of them got run over by a car trying to get away from this mob and died. And so a couple of people in this white mob was charged, and I think they were found guilty. I believe. I don't remember exactly what was guilty or innocent, but they did something like that as well on Law and Order. So you have, like almost, well, it's not every single episode, but a good majority of them is like, I would say about approximately half the shows, or almost half the shows, was taken from the Headlines episodes. And unfortunately, on Law and Order SVU, they still do that occasionally today. One of them, which I wish they aired the episode, is the one with Donald Trump. I'm dying to see that episode on NBC. I know if NBC would have the nerve to post or air the episode, because they're going to get crapped on by Trump. Yeah. So that's my review of the original Law and Order series. Please click on the video. Please rate it. Feel free to comment on it. Please subscribe to my channel. Please forward this video to your Facebook pages. You can see all my videos on my YouTube channel, but also at rallyc.com. There's also WDY and NSC.com. There's a homepage to the Rally Reviewer, Chris Lee Moore. Please check out all of his videos on his website. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.